Chapter 2690. Especially Chu Yuqing and the others. They'd looked down on Luo Qingtong and despised her before, but now they'd been slapped in the face. The middle-aged man's words were like a slap to their faces, causing them to lose all face. Originally, they'd only been able to suppress Luo Qingtong because of their status. Now that Zhang Beiyue and the others had appeared, they'd instantly crushed their status as disciples of the Tianfeng Chu clan to the ground. The other party's strength wasn't common even in a 4-star region. It was very likely that he was a disciple of a force above a 3-star region. Even such a person treated Luo Qingtong differently. Compared to Luo Qingtong, what was there to be superior about? Chu Yuqing and the others had ugly expressions, but Luo Qingtong hadn't heard what Zhang Beiyue and the others had said. At this moment she was wholeheartedly treating Xianxia. Her current strength couldn't be compared to the past. In the past, Luo Qingtong's strength had been low, but when she treated Xianxia's meridians, she'd always caused a huge commotion. But now her strength had risen to almost the level of the Exalted Realm. Moreover, in the series of battles just now, her bottleneck to the Exalted Realm had clearly loosened. Now that he was treating Xianren, he didn't say anything. At the same time, her strength was constantly rushing towards the Exalted Realm. Luo Qingtong had a feeling that if she could break through to the Exalted Realm this time, it wouldn't be as simple as the initial Exalted Realm or the Crimson Exalted Realm. It was very likely that she'd be able to break through to the Orange Exalted Realm, or even the Yellow Exalted Realm. Luo Qingtong had already accumulated enough strength, but for some reason she hadn't been able to break through. If she could break through now, she'd definitely be able to break through several levels in one go. Thus, she focused on treating Xianxia's injuries. She'd already closed off her perception of the outside world to prevent herself from being distracted. In her opinion, no matter how ferocious the spirit beast was, Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others should be able to stop it. She took advantage of this time to quickly treat Xianxia. She wanted to prevent this man from overdoing it and damaging the strength of his meridians. The strength of Xianxia's meridians was even more miserable than when Luo Qingtong had first met him. It was already close to single digits, and only a few pitiful numbers were left hanging there. Luo Qingtong didn't know how this man could be so nonchalant. One had to know that this number represented the strength of Xianxia's meridians. It was as brittle as a piece of paper. This man actually dared to act so recklessly just now. How infuriating. Luo Qingtong's strength was silently treating Xianxia's meridians. At the same time, she was using the man's strength to break through the bottleneck of the Exalted Realm. How could she have the time to care about what was going on outside at this critical moment? Xianxia also turned a deaf ear to what was going on outside in order to fully cooperate with her. The two of them didn't speak, but Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others couldn't let anyone see anything wrong with them. A group of people surrounded Luo Qingtong and Xianxia so that no one could see what they were doing inside. Then one of them said in a low voice, "Young Master Xiaoqi said it's okay. But she's a little tired now. Controlling the threads just now was very taxing on her." Chapter 2691. When Feng Yu and the others spoke, Zhang Beiyue and the others immediately focused their attention on them. With one look, they realized that they were different from the top 9th level human martial realm guards beside Lian Xingchen and the others. They were not affected by the spirit beast's power. Obviously, they were not ordinary 9th level human martial realm experts. Their strength was far more tyrannical than ordinary 9th level human martial realm experts. Okay. Zhang Beiyue nodded. They had seen Luo Qingtong's consumption just now and didn't feel that there was anything wrong with Bei Qing and Feng Yu's words. Besides, they came out this time to borrow Luo Qingtong's ability to contain the large number of spirit beasts. Otherwise, when they were dealing with the mutated spirit beast, those low-level spirit beasts would continuously rush up and they would be distracted. At that time it was very likely that they would be injured. If not, they wouldn't have shown up. After all, if they could, they didn't want to show up in front of people. That ancient divine object was too important. Even if they got it, they had to be careful. Otherwise, it would inevitably cause trouble for the Zhan family. But at this moment, the mutated spirit beast strength was somewhat beyond their expectations. In order to prevent possible accidents, they could only show up and let Luo Qingtong and the others help. Now that Luo Qingtong's consumption was too great, Bei Qing and Feng Yu's help was the same. However, the other party's strength was so tyrannical that they were obviously not from the 6-star region. Could it be that they were from the 5-star region or even the 4-star region? Zhang Beiyue's eyes narrowed slightly. Although he was puzzled, he didn't care very much. With the strength of their group, so what if Bei Qing and Feng Yu's strength were far beyond the ordinary 9th-level human martial realm? The strength of the human martial realm and the earth martial realm were not at the same level. In the end, the human martial realm did not transcend the human level. And the earth martial realm had already reached the level of heaven and earth. Heaven, earth, and human, these three realms were divided. Just from the meaning of these three words, one could already know the level of these three realms. There was a difference between heaven and earth and between heaven and earth and humans. Zhang Beiyue was not worried that Bei Qing and Feng Yu would pose any threat to them. Then let's do it. As he spoke, he rose to his feet and charged towards the spirit beast in front of him. When Zhang Beiyue and the others appeared, the spirit beast was blocked in midair by the net of auras that were intertwined around them. At this moment, it was howling madly as it charged towards the net formed by the Zhang family members. At this time, Zhang Beiyue appeared in front of it, which was exactly what it wanted. It immediately attacked Zhang Beiyue with a claw. When the spirit beast pounced on Zhang Beiyue, the people of the Zhang family also moved. With a boom, he appeared beside Zhang Beiyue and fought against the huge mutated spirit beast with him. When Bei Qing and Feng Yu attacked Zhang Beiyue and the others, they also attacked together with the people from the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan to stop the other spirit beasts that were attacking from all directions. When they attacked, there was an explosion in Luo Qingtong's body. Then the aura in her body rose to the level of the Venerate realm with a boom. Chapter 2692. Her strength was rising rapidly. Early Exalted Realm, Red Revered Realm, 1st level, 2nd level, 3rd level. Luo Qingtong's strength wasn't too great. At this time, everyone was immersed in the battle with the spirit beasts. The changes and sounds within her body weren't obvious, so no one noticed them. Furthermore, no one noticed that the aura in her body was rising at an extremely shocking speed. This was all of the strength that Luo Qingtong had accumulated during this time, as well as Yi Qianxian's strength and aura. To her, this man's aura was like a fish in water. It fused into her body without any hindrance, coordinating with her strength and comprehension of laws, constantly raising her strength. And during this process, Yi Qianxian's meridians were constantly being repaired. Originally, he was envied by the heavens. No matter what sort of heavenly treasure he used, it was only able to slow down the speed at which his meridians ruptured. But now, under the circulation of Luo Qingtong's aura, it was constantly being repaired and enhanced. 1%, 5%, 10%. Yi Qianxian's meridians were originally damaged to the point of no return because he had used all of his strength in his battle with the Sky Capital Emperor. But under the healing effects of Luo Qingtong's aura, the strength of his meridians was restored to 10%. This was the same level of strength that Yi Qianxian had in the True Spill continent. And at this time, the rate at which his meridians were being repaired didn't stop. Luo Qingtong's strength was no longer at the same level as before. With her strength, she could naturally restore Yi Qianxian's meridians to an even higher level. If the heavens want him to die, then I won't let him die. Let's see who can take my man's life from my hands. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold as she continued to enhance Yi Qianxian's meridians. The fact that Yi Qianren was heavily injured this time had truly agitated her. This man had a proud temperament. Luo Qingtong didn't want to force him to say things he didn't want to say. But at the thought of someone bullying her man when she was not around, Luo Qingtong's heart burned with anger. Only she could bully her man, didn't she know that? If not for the fact that Luo Qingtong's strength was not enough, she would have wanted to restore the strength of Yi Qianxian's meridians. At that time, whoever dared to bully her man would be slapped to death. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she immediately did her best to restore the strength of Yi Qianxian's meridians. At this moment there was a loud boom. A loud explosion rang out, followed by a mournful and tragic howl of a beast. In the direction of Zhang Beiyue and the others. They formed a battle formation and directly attacked. Golden lightning formed in the sky, and with a bang the huge mutated spirit beast was blasted away. The latter's body tumbled in the air, and finally smashed into the heart of the continent not far away. The huge spirit beast's body overflowed with blood, dyeing its fur and the ground red. A thunderous sword wound ran from its chest all the way to its tailbone, penetrating its abdomen and almost coming out of its back. The huge spirit beast lay on the ground, its body violently undulating, and then it stopped moving. Chapter 2693. They almost crashed into the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan behind them. It was obvious that they had expended a lot of energy to launch this attack. Their faces were pale. Not only that, but a few of them were bleeding from the corners of their lips. "All right, let's go." Zhang Beiyue wiped the blood from his lips and barely managed to calm the rolling air waves in his body. He was about to lead the Zhang clan into the heart of the continent. Suddenly, a voice came from behind them. It was a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Young Master Zhang, why are you in such a hurry to leave? I have to thank you for clearing all the obstacles for us along the way." Zhang Beiyue and the others froze when they heard this. Then they turned around and looked at the bottom of the mountain not far away. There, a group of figures in blood-red robes appeared in front of everyone. The demonic moon sect. Zhang Beiyue and the others narrowed their eyes. They did not know why the demonic moon sect would appear here. Shouldn't they be seriously injured and unable to cause any more trouble? Zhang Beiyue and the others waited outside the hole in the heart of the continent for a long time. They were sure that the demonic moon sect would not be able to cause trouble. However, he did not expect that the demonic moon sect would suddenly appear right after he and the others killed the spirit beast. Not only that, but their strength. Zhang Beiyue and the others looked at the demonic moon sect's strength with a grave expression. The other party's strength had recovered. Not only that, but it had also improved compared to before. Zhang Beiyue and the others' hearts sank. They did not know how heavy it was. They had just dealt with the gigantic mutated spirit beast, and even though they had managed to knock it away with a single blow, they had still suffered quite a bit of damage from the attack as well. Not only that, but they had also used up a lot of their strength. Under such circumstances, it was very disadvantageous for them to face the demonic moon sect's people who had not lost any strength and strength. What was going on? How could the demonic moon sect's people recover their strength? The medicinal pills here were completely useless. Zhang Beiyue and the others thought. They glanced and saw a black figure standing beside the demonic moon sect's people. The black figure stood beside the demonic moon sect's people and the leader of the demonic moon sect's people. Zhang Beiyue and the others' hearts skipped a beat when they saw that they were on equal footing. Their gazes were focused on the black figure. However, the figure was shrouded in a black robe from top to bottom. The shadow of the wide hood completely covered his face. So much that no one could see anything. Even if he raised his head slightly, no one could see what he looked like under the hood. "Who are you?" Zhang Beiyue looked at the black-robed man warily, his face cold. If he was not mistaken, this person's people's people. These people from the demonic moon sect really deserved to die. He stared coldly at the demonic moon sect members in front of him. Under the hood, Yu Mingqian's face was indifferent. The corner of his lips curled up, and his tone was indescribably casual. "Most importantly, none of you will be able to escape today. Especially you, Xieqi. Don't you think so?" Chapter 2694. Yu Mingqian's words instantly attracted everyone's attention to Luo Qingtong. Because when Yu Mingqian said those words, her eyes were fixed on Luo Qingtong. "Xieqi." Someone felt that the name sounded familiar. Suddenly he cried out in surprise. "Isn't that the name that has been spreading around Heavenly Wind Inscription City recently?" Xieqi, who came out of nowhere, claimed to be the disciple of the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord, Song Cheng's disciple. However, the crowd guessed that this was most likely her way of covering up her actions. In Heavenly Wind Inscription City, she defeated the people of Lingyu Inscription City and took back the inscription tower for the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Not only that, it was said that she also cured the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord and restored the latter's destroyed life inscription mark. It was also because of this that the people of Lingyu Inscription City did not succeed in their plot to kill the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord. And there was also a rumor that this Xieqi was a battle soul master. One had to know that Xieqi was only a young man. Not only that, it was said that his appearance was exceptionally beautiful and evil, making people feel bewitched when they looked at him. But at this moment, everyone looked at the ugly and ferocious birthmark on Luo Qingtong's face and couldn't see how he was handsome. Was this a joke? How could this Luo Xiaoqi be that evil spirit? Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. As for Chuker and the others, they couldn't help but cry out. How is this possible? How could she be that Xieqi? This ugly monster. Chuker's face was filled with excitement. She also knew about Xieqi. In her heart she had thought that if she had the chance in the future she would definitely go and see if the Xiaqi was as outstanding and handsome as the rumors said. But who would have thought that Luo Xiaoqi was actually Xiaqi? Other than the fact that they both had the word qi, how was she similar to Xiaqi? The birthmark on her face was even more disgusting. Chu Ke's voice was sharp. Yu Mingqian did not refute her. She only looked at Luo Qingtong indifferently. After the latter had broken through to the venerable realm and helped Yi Qianxian increase the strength of his meridians by 10%, he had already recovered his perception of the outside world. When Zhang Beiyue and the others killed that spirit beast she was very clear about it. At this moment, seeing Yu Mingqian's gaze on her, Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She didn't try to hide it. Same here. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. The smile on her lips was indescribably evil and indolent. It was naturally domineering. You people from the Central Inscription Association are also all-pervasive. Just like rats and bugs on the streets, don't you think so? You were even able to chase me all the way to this abandoned continent. The moment Luo Qingtong said that, everyone was shocked. Luo Qingtong's words were equivalent to admitting her identity. Was she really Xiaqi? Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong at this moment and found that she had changed all of a sudden. Her face was still the same, ferocious, terrifying and ugly. But now she was not as ordinary as before. If the previous Luo Xiaoqi was thrown into a crowd, it would be hard to find her. Then now Luo Qingtong was like a self-emitting light source, making people unable to take their eyes off her. Even that ferocious and ugly birthmark did not damage her charm and temperament. Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong dumbfounded. They didn't know how she could change these two completely different temperaments so easily. How could a person become another person without any obstacles? And with the same face? Chapter 2695. Xiaqi, it's useless to talk big. You should know that with your current lineup you can't defeat us. As Yu Mingqian spoke, his gaze focused on Yi Qianxian. Until now he was still full of fear and doubt about Yi Qianxian's strength. He sensed that the other party should be very strong. However, since Luo Qingtong and the others entered the cave, this man had not made a move. He was so worried about Luo Qingtong, so why didn't he make a move? There were two reasons. Either the other party's strength was not as strong as he thought, or the other party could not use his full strength for some reason. Yu Mingqian and the people of the demonic moon sect had been following them for a long time. He had used a special method to show Luo Qingtong and the others' movements in the water mirror, so he could see them clearly. Therefore at this moment he looked at Yi Qianxian with a very meaningful gaze. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly when she saw his gaze. She subconsciously blocked Yi Qianxian's figure. The man had not woken up yet. When Yu Mingqian spoke earlier, Luo Qingtong had already increased the strength of Yi Qianxian's meridians to more than 20%, which was close to 30% progress. This was the maximum extent that Luo Qingtong could restore Yi Qianxian's meridians with her current strength. However, because Yi Qianxian's meridians had been maintained below 10% for a long time, it had not been increased to more than 10% for a long time. Therefore, when the meridians suddenly increased to 30%, the enormous and terrifying power that he had been suppressing in his body surged almost instantly and spread to Yi Qianxian's meridians. If he did not control it, the power in Yi Qianxian's body would be enough to break all the meridians that had just been repaired. Therefore, Yi Qianxian's mind was completely immersed in his body, guiding and unblocking the power. Waves of energy surged within his body. If anyone could see the level of power in his body, they would definitely be shocked by the power that had awakened in his body at this moment. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the power was enough to destroy the world. However, at this moment they were like galloping horses that had been reined in or like caged beasts. They were all confined within Yi Qianxian's body. No one outside would be able to see the truth. When Yu Mingqian saw Luo Qingtong blocking Yi Qianxian, her eyes flashed. Although he didn't know what happened to the other party, he could tell that he couldn't do anything now. That's good. This way no one would be able to stop him from capturing Xiaqi. Of course, even if the other party woke up, he might not be able to stop him. This time, in order to capture Luo Qingtong, Yu Mingqian had made a lot of preparations. The way he saw it, even if Yi Qianxian had some strength, it might not be enough in the face of his preparations. Now that the other party couldn't do anything, it was more advantageous for him. At least he would have less trouble. And Luo Xiaoqi was destined to be his. Xiaqi, come here. Otherwise I'll kill them all and capture you. Believe me, this answer is not good for you. Yu Mingqian's face was indifferent. A pair of dark eyes stared at Luo Qingtong. At this moment he was very calm. Chapter 2696. When he said that, the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan were in an uproar. They looked in the direction of Yu Mingqian and the others in despair. They were all in the earth martial arts realm. Only a few of them were in the human martial arts realm. Some of them were in the human martial arts realm and were only in the 7th or 8th level. However, the other party's strength was enough to crush them. The Zhan family had just been through a round of exhaustion, while the evil moon sect was unharmed. More importantly, even if the Zhan family hadn't been exhausted, they wouldn't have saved them. All in all, they were in a situation of certain death. No matter what the outcome of the battle between the Zhan family and the evil moon sect was, they would all die if they were caught in it. And at this moment the only thing that could save them from this hopeless situation was actually Luo Xiaoqi go with them. Chuk suddenly cried out at this moment. She looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong and gritted her teeth. They want you. Go with them. Maybe we can survive. When she said that, Chu Lingfeng, Chu Xiaofeng, Gui Feng and the others all glared at her. Chu what nonsense are you spouting? Chu Xiaofeng shouted at her. You're letting Luo Xiaoqi go with them just to survive? Do you know what they'll do to her? Chu Xiaofeng was furious. In terms of friendship, his relationship with Luo Qingtong was not as deep as Chu Lingfeng and Gu Yifeng's relationship with Luo Qingtong. However, they had interacted with each other along the way. He admired Luo Qingtong's character and ability. Moreover, how many times had Luo Qingtong saved them along the way? Even if he didn't know Luo Qingtong, he wouldn't kick Luo Qingtong when she was down. Not to mention that Luo Qingtong had helped him so many times. After he spoke, Chu Lingfeng stared at Chuker and coldly said, if she goes over, all of you can forget about living either. When Chu Lingfeng said this, his eyes were abnormally ruthless. He was like a wild beast and Luo Qingtong was more important than the sky in his heart. If the Tianfeng Chu family agreed with Chuker and sent Luo Qingtong over, he would kill them no matter what. Then he would risk his life to rescue Luo Qingtong. He was willing to die. These people who harmed her, none of them should even think about escaping. Hearing this, Chuker's expression froze. She looked in Chu Lingfeng's direction and said angrily, Chu Lingfeng, are you crazy? Don't forget that you are a member of the Tianfeng Chu family. Luo Xiaoqi is just an outsider. Not only that, she hid her identity. Who knows what she is plotting by sneaking into our Tianfeng Chu family's team. You are going to attack us for an outsider. Do you still have a conscience? You ungrateful wretch. When she said this, Chu Lingfeng's expression didn't change. He looked coldly in Chuker's direction. You are the outsiders. For him, only his master, mother and Suyu were his family. You. Chuker was so angry that she trembled. At this moment Chu Yufei's voice sounded. Young master. She looked at Chu Lingfeng and said slowly, I know you don't want to part with young master Xieqi. But this time they just want her to go over, not her life. Chapter 2697. If young master Xieqi doesn't go over, we'll all die. Including you, young master. I believe that even if young master Xieqi had to make a choice, she would still choose to go over. After all, she doesn't want anything to happen to you. Young master Xieqi, what do you think? Chu Yufei's words were much wiser than Chuker's. She threw the question to Luo Qingtong. On the surface, it seemed that she wanted Luo Qingtong to make the choice. But in fact, if Luo Qingtong didn't agree, it would mean that she didn't care about Chu Lingfeng's life at all. In that case, what was the point of Luo Qingtong protecting her? Moreover, she pointed out that Luo Qingtong's life wasn't in danger, which immediately reduced the guilt of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Lian clan to the lowest. What she meant was, look, Luo Xiaoqi doesn't care about our lives. We're just handing her over to the demonic moon sect. What's wrong with that? No matter how one looked at it, she was forcing Luo Qingtong to go over to Yu Mingqian's side to save their lives. Luo Qingtong looked at Chu Yufei indifferently. Chu Yufei was looking at her with her head slightly raised. The smile on her face was perfect, but the light in the depths of her eyes was unusually provocative and complacent. In Chu Yufei's opinion, Luo Qingtong had no choice at all. If she went over to Yu Mingqian's side, they might still live. But if Luo Qingtong didn't go over, they would all die. There was no need to think about how to choose between the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Lian clan. As for the Zhan clan, it was needless to say. Would they fight against the demonic moon sect just for Luo Shaoqi? Chu Yufei was very happy in her heart. She was secretly delighted that she could finally suppress Luo Qingtong. Luo Xiaoqi's performance in their team just now was too dazzling. Chu Yuqing and Chu Ke had targeted her several times, but she had slapped them in the face. Chu Yufei didn't dare to act rashly. But now she could finally see this person's misfortune. Chu Yufei felt an inexplicable sense of exultation in her heart. She felt that she had finally found a way to vent all the grievances she had suffered from Luo Qingtong, as well as the indescribable jealousy and hatred. Luo Xiaoqi, you probably didn't expect to be so unlucky, did you? I don't care if you're Luo Xiaoqi or Xieqi. You won't be able to escape now. As Chu Yufei thought about this, she felt very refreshed. However, she still maintained a calm and sincere expression as she looked at Luo Qingtong. His appearance was even somewhat sorrowful and pleading. Chu Yufei thought that her current appearance would definitely arouse the desolation in the hearts of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan. After all, everyone wanted to live. After she spoke, the people of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan became even more agitated. Yufei. Chu Xiaofeng's expression was thunderous. How could he not see Chu Yufei's intention? This woman wanted to retreat in order to advance. She wanted to force Luo Qingtong to side with Yu Mingqian for the sake of everyone. She was so scheming and ruthless. Beside him, Chu Jingyi also looked at Chu Yufei with an indifferent and cold expression. Chapter 2698. We don't agree to exchange Little Seven's life for ours. Gu Yifeng waved the Dragon Slayer spear in his hand. The tip of the spear pointed downwards as it hummed faintly. His voice was sonorous and low. Our lives were saved by Little Seven previously. It doesn't matter if we die now. That's right. Hu Zhan, who was beside Gu Yifeng, shouted angrily, life and death are decreed by fate. Riches and honor are determined by the heavens. We, the Red Flame Mercenary Group, disdain using our companions and benefactors in exchange for our lives. Of course, some people who think they are from prestigious families and have noble status are an exception. I think they don't even know how to write the word shameless. Well said. When Hu Zhan said this, Ouyang Yinyu's incomparably enchanting laughter suddenly rang out charmingly. She walked up to Hu Zhan in a flirtatious manner. It was rare that she did not pinch his ear. Instead, she raised her hand and patted his face. Not bad. You've learned some literary skills. You've been reciting with the leader for a long time, haven't you? When she said this, she lifted her eyelids and looked at Chu Yufei, who was not far away. Her face was firm and resolute. She raised her small face and looked extremely innocent. She smiled charmingly and said, Miss Yufei's words are too profound. We don't understand. But what you mean is that Little Seven will go over there herself and save your lives, right? Why should she? Just because she saved your lives several times. Should she pay with her own life? The Tianfeng Chu family is indeed worthy of being the #1 family in the Tianfeng domain. You're the most thick-skinned. But vulgar mercenaries like us are different. Ouyang Yinyu giggled when she said this. Then she said charmingly, we mercenaries only know one word, and that is kindness. Our lives don't need to be exchanged with Little Seven. That's right. Our lives don't need to be exchanged with Little Sevens. At this time, the other mercenaries also spoke up in unison and stood beside them. Old Qin and the others did not hesitate at all. Their lives were saved by Luo Qingtong in the Thousand Silkworms territory. Not to mention this meeting. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong's protection, who would care about the lives of these mercenaries? At that time, he would be lucky if the Tianfeng Chu family didn't use him as a shield. How could he survive? They would never force Luo Qingtong to go to Yu Mingqian's side. Almost all the mercenaries of the Heavenly Wind Mercenary City stood out. After they stepped forward, Lian Xing and the others also slowly stepped forward. We don't agree either. The man's voice was indifferent. However, the content of those words caused Chu Yufei's expression to abruptly change. She was originally mocking Gu Yifeng and the others for overestimating themselves in her heart. So what if they supported Luo Qingtong? As long as the Flying Star Lian clan and the Tianfeng Chu clan joined hands and handed Luo Qingtong over to the other side. If that was the case, they would not be able to turn the tide. However, just as she was thinking this, Lian Xingqian's words gave her a huge blow. How was this possible? How could he disregard the safety of the Flying Star Lian clan for Luo Xiaoqi? What kind of disaster was this Luo Xiaoqi? Chu Yufei's expression was one of disbelief. She looked in the direction of Lian Xingqian and the others. Chapter 2699. Young Master Lian. Don't you care about the Lian family of the Flying Star sector? Are you going to let him make the decision? Chu Yufei bellowed at the Lian family of the Flying Star sector. However, Lian Xingqian's expression did not change at all. Thank you for your concern for the Lian family of the Flying Star sector, Miss Yufei. His voice was full of mockery. But I don't think that the decision is bad for the Lian family of the Flying Star sector. At the very least, we will be known as loyal people even if we die, won't we? You, on the other hand, are free to die if you want to be known as ungrateful people. The Lian family of the Flying Star sector will stay out of it. After he said that, Luo Qingtong chuckled. Young Master Lian, you are indeed wise. She looked at Chu Yufei and the rest of them, whose faces had turned extremely awful, and shook her head. He is playing you like monkeys. Didn't you notice? What the man said just now was that I would either go there myself or he would kill all of you and capture me. There's no mention of me letting you go after I'm captured. Idiot. After Luo Qingtong said the last two words casually, Chu Yufei's face turned pale immediately. She looked at Luo Qingtong with an ugly and indescribable expression. Her mouth opened and closed, not knowing what to say. Yes. The man didn't say that he would let them go after Luo Qingtong was captured. Everything was just their conjecture. Was it true that Luo Qingtong was right, and that they would still be killed even if they handed over Luo Qingtong? Then what kind of mistake had she made exactly? She was basically putting on a monkey show for other people to see. No wonder Luo Xiaoqi said that they were being played like monkeys. Chu Yufei's face was awful. But Luo Qingtong didn't give up giving her the final blow. If I were you, I'd rather die with you than hand me over. After all, it is me that he wants. As long as I'm here, you'll still have room to resist. Handing me over? Do you think you're not dying fast enough? Luo Qingtong sneered. She had originally intended to ignore Chu Yufei, but the other party was so stupid that she couldn't stand it anymore. How much did the other party want her to be unlucky? She couldn't even see through this little trick, yet she still felt very proud of herself and wanted to provoke her. Little did she know that in front of Luo Qingtong, she was just like a clown who was fooling around without realizing it. Luo Qingtong's words struck Chu Yufei like a bolt from the blue. She had always thought that she was more scheming than others. But at this moment, because she was eager to Luo Qingtong's bad luck, she actually didn't see through Yu Mingqian's intentions. Now that Luo Qingtong had ridiculed her, the blow to her was worse than death. Her pride and arrogance were all trampled under Luo Qingtong's feet in an instant. Chu Yufei felt dizzy in her heart. Just as she was about to faint, Yu Mingqian's chuckling voice rang out. That's indeed the case. He had indeed intentionally led the Tianfeng Chu family and the Lian family to make a move on Luo Qingtong. This way he would be able to deal with the Zhan family with all his strength. But since he had already seen through it, then, I can only create another good show. At this moment his voice suddenly became cold and sinister. Chapter 2700. As his voice rang out, the evil moon sect members behind him leaped up in an instant and rushed towards Luo Qingtong and the Zhan family. These evil moon sect members had long been controlled by Yu Mingqian using a unique method. At this moment they didn't dare to disobey his orders. Seeing their figures rushing over, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. Then she said to Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others, protect Qianren later. Don't let him get hurt. I have my own way. As she spoke, she suddenly raised her voice and said to the Zhan family members not far away, Young Master Zhan. How about we make a deal? You guys protect the people on my side. I'll help you recover your strength and injuries. As soon as Luo Qingtong's words came out, the Zhan family members who had been trying to recover their strength immediately looked at her. Zhan Beiyu's eyes were directly fixed on her. Are you telling the truth? His voice was cold, but there was a hint of eagerness in it. Zhan Beiyue and the others had been ambushed by Yu Mingqian and were obviously at a disadvantage. They had even thought about whether to capture Luo Qingtong in their hands to test how much Yu Mingqian cared about Luo Qingtong. If they cared enough, they might be able to find a chance. However, before they could carry out this action, Luo Qingtong's voice rang out. Zhang Beiyue's gaze was deep. He didn't know if the young man had seen through their plans, so he deliberately spoke like this. In fact, this was the case. Luo Qingtong had indeed seen through the Zhang family's plans. In other words, as long as the Zhang family members weren't stupid, after discovering that Yu Mingqian wanted to capture her, they would think of using her as a shield. After all, whether it was useful or not, they had to try before they knew. This was also one of Yu Mingqian's schemes. He was such a smart person. How could he casually reveal that he wanted to capture Luo Qingtong? Naturally, Luo Qingtong was targeted by the people of the Tianfeng Chu clan, the Lian clan and the Zhan clan. As long as the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan attacked Luo Qingtong, he would be able to deal with the Zhan clan with all his strength. After killing them, he could obtain the ancient god artifact and capture Luo Qingtong. And if the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan didn't make a move, then the Zhan clan would make a move on Luo Qingtong in order to get rid of their disadvantage. At that time, the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Lian clan of Flying Star would definitely fight against them for Luo Qingtong. At that time, Yu Mingqian would naturally be able to easily seize the opportunity to exterminate the Zhan family. If both sides didn't make a move, then it wouldn't matter. At worst, he would spend some effort to kill the Zhan family members. Luo Qingtong and the others still wouldn't be able to escape from his grasp. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, revealing Luo Qingtong's identity wouldn't affect Yu Mingqian at all. On the contrary, if the Tianfeng Chu clan, the Lian clan and the Zhan clan made a move, it would be more advantageous for him. But at this moment, Luo Qingtong's words broke this advantage. As long as Luo Qingtong could restore the strength and injuries of the Zhan family members, especially their injuries as long as they could recover, then Yu Mingqian's advantage would no longer exist. Yu Mingqian's eyes suddenly narrowed when he heard this. Chapter 2701. Eat. Her voice was concise and to the point. Zhang Beiyue did not hesitate too much and swallowed the elixir directly. Boom. The aura around him suddenly changed. The power that he had lost before was replenished in an instant. Not only that, the injuries caused by dealing with the spirit beast were also greatly eased and healed. It's useful. The pale look on his face recovered slightly as he spoke to the Zhan family members around him. Then he looked at Luo Qingtong with a deep gaze. Deal. This young man was probably the most bizarre young man he had ever seen. This kind of pill that could be used in the abandoned continent was also extremely precious to them. Zhang Beiyue, as the young master of the Great Heaven region, might not even be able to come into contact with this kind of pill. Luo Qingtong, this weak youth, took it out at once. Thinking of what Yu Mingqian mentioned before, Luo Qingtong's name was Xieqi, and this was just an alias. Zhang Beiyue's eyes darkened slightly as he remembered this name in his heart. He wasn't from the Heavenly Wind region, nor was he from the Six-Star region. Naturally, he didn't know about Luo Qingtong. But this didn't prevent him from investigating in the future. As long as he could successfully leave here today. Zhang Beiyue's words came out, and in an instant Luo Qingtong nodded. She raised her hand and threw dozens of bottles of pills to them. These pills were all prepared by Luo Qingtong when she was in the Heavenly Wind Mercenary City. Except for Chu Lingfeng, who used some before, Luo Qingtong didn't touch the rest. It just so happened that they came in handy. Boom. After Zhang Beiyue and the others took the pills given by Luo Qingtong, those with lighter injuries recovered their strength almost instantly. As for those with more serious injuries, they recovered their strength after taking a few more pills. This was also because Luo Qingtong was an alchemist, and there were many kinds of pills that she refined. If some people couldn't be cured after taking a pill, they could just take another pill. In any case, Luo Qingtong had refined a lot of medicinal pills with the same effect. Moreover, the types of pills were not the same. This was because the same type of pill could not be stacked if taken consecutively within a certain period of time. He had to wait for a period of time. And in this abandoned continent, the elixir pills that Luo Qingtong refined were only a tenth of the medicinal effect. Therefore, one elixir pill was definitely not enough for a seriously injured person. One had to take different types of medicinal pills with similar effects. However, the healing elixir that Luo Qingtong took out was exactly like this. Different types, but the effects were the same. When Zhang Beiyue and the others held it in their hands, they were still very surprised. Especially Zhang Beiyue. For an ordinary person to be able to take out one of these pills, it would already be incredible. Luo Qingtong took out a lot of them. Could it be that she had discovered the ruins of some powerful alchemist? They guessed so in their hearts, but the speed at which they took the pills was not slow at all. Boom! Their figures met the people of the evil moon sect who were rushing in front of them. The strength of Zhang Beiyue and the others was not inferior to the people of the evil moon sect. In fact, they were even stronger than them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have seriously injured the people of the evil moon sect. If the people of the Lian family and the Chu family hadn't arrived and disrupted their plans, they would have wiped out the people of the evil moon sect. Chapter 2702. At this moment, with the help of Luo Qingtong, their injuries had healed and their strength had increased at the same time. They blocked the people of the evil moon sect. Although the latter's strength had increased with the help of Yu Mingqian, they were only on par with them. At this moment, the cooperation of Zhang Beiyue and the others was obviously higher. Boom! Zhang Beiyue and the others blocked the people of the evil moon sect. When Yu Mingqian saw this scene, his eyes immediately darkened. Xiaxia actually had pills that could be used in this abandoned continent. What was the other party's background? Yu Mingqian was the young master of the Inscription Association, and his status was far from that of ordinary people. He was also highly valued by the Inscription Association, so he could get those pills. However, the pills that Luo Qingtong took out were obviously much more effective than his. At least when he helped the people of the evil moon sect recover their strength and heal their injuries, it was far less effective than Luo Qingtong's pills. His pills also had his self-made medicine inscription array added to them, which was why they had such an effect. What was Luo Qingtong relying on? His face was gloomy and he didn't know why, but he felt very uneasy. He felt that the other party had too many tricks up her sleeve. Yu Mingqian had already fallen for Luo Qingtong several times before. Previously, the other party had escaped once in Inscription City. Later, the inscription man-searching array was useless, so it was another time. Later on, he lurked beside Luo Qingtong, but he couldn't get close to her. It was another time. Yu Mingqian had never spent so much effort on anyone before, but he didn't gain anything. No matter if it was before or now, there was only Luo Qingtong who could make him waste his efforts to such an extent. This time he absolutely couldn't let her escape. As Yu Mingqian thought this, his eyes suddenly darkened. Without thinking, he rushed in the direction of Luo Qingtong. At the same time, he waved his left hand. Berserk! As his voice rang out, the people of the evil moon sect suddenly froze. Then almost instantly they let out indescribably shrill cries. That voice was like the roar of a beast. It was filled with a berserk and unconscious feeling. Then with a boom, the demonic moon sect members turned into beasts that only knew how to attack and not defend under Yu Mingqian's signal. This was what Yu Mingqian had done to the demonic moon sect members. How could it be so easy to receive benefits from him? Not to mention, these demonic moon sect members were actually disloyal. They wanted to betray him and threaten him with Luo Qingtong. Yu Mingqian used the inscription pattern array he had inscribed on their bodies to easily control them. From the moment these demonic moon sect members agreed to cooperate with Yu Mingqian, they had already embarked on a path of no return. It was just that they didn't know. Yu Mingqian had never intended to let them live in the first place. It wasn't just them. Except for Luo Qingtong, he wasn't going to let go of anyone here. Boom! Yu Mingqian's figure swept towards Luo Qingtong. After the demonic moon sect members went berserk, they attacked Zhang Beiyue and the others even more fiercely than before. Because they only wanted to attack and not defend, the sudden violent attack made Zhang Beiyue and the others unable to resist for a while. Chapter 2703. Bang! The defensive line formed by Zhang Beiyue and the others was suddenly torn open. An expert of the Zhang family was blasted back more than a dozen steps. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood and was seriously injured. Fortunately, he still had the elixir that Luo Qingtong had given him. He immediately took one. His injuries were stabilized, but the place where he was at had been broken through by someone else. Boom! Yu Mingqian's figure swept towards Luo Qingtong and appeared in front of her in an instant. Boom! He raised his hand to grab Luo Qingtong. At the same time, his other hand directly hit Xianxia beside her. Master! Evil Doctor! Bei Qing Fengyu and the others saw this and hurried forward to stop him. However, their strength had been sealed by Xianxia. The latter had not woken up yet, so they could not unlock the seal. The strength that they could exert was limited. Yu Mingqian was afraid of their strength, so he raised his hand and blasted a battle inscription mark. Combined with his strength, This attack was comparable to the 9th level of the Earth martial arts realm. Boom. Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others were blasted back several steps by the power of the attack. Although their physical strength was tyrannical and there was almost no injury, they could not stabilize their bodies. Just as they were about to be forced back, a dazzling sword light slashed out from behind them. Boom. Luo Qingtong's life and death yin-yang sword appeared in an instant and directly cut the battle inscription pattern that had blasted away Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others. Its power and speed were slightly reduced. At the same time, a giant claw suddenly slapped out from her body. In an instant the wind and clouds changed and the sky changed color. The giant claw suddenly appeared in the air and directly hit Yu Mingqian's palm, blasting him away. This giant claw belonged to Little Pig, who had just turned into a wolf not long ago. He bitterly looked at the strength that he had just recovered, but it was gone in an instant. His heart was filled with tears. It was like this every time. When would he be able to show off for a while? Little Pig angrily looked at Yu Mingqian in front of Luo Qingtong and then slapped out with his claw. Luo Qingtong had reached the level of the Venerable Realm. His left front claw could be fully extended and now his right claw could be slightly extended. It was equivalent to 2 consecutive attacks. Boom. Seeing another giant claw emerge from the void, Yu Mingqian's eyes turned cold. His right hand quickly drew a battle inscription pattern in front of him. The seal was formed almost instantaneously. Boom. Little Pig's huge claw slammed onto the battle inscription pattern, shattering it into pieces. However, it didn't hurt Yu Minglian in the slightest. Tisk, it's a protection inscription and the highest level one at that. How can this kid's inscription strength be so strong? It's illogical. Little Pig felt gloomy. It had been hiding in Luo Qingtong's body all this time and did not reveal any trace of itself. He thought that his sudden attack would definitely injure Yu Mingqian. He thought he would capture her and interrogate her about the Central Inscription Association. But he did not expect her inscription strength to be so strong. To instantly form a seal, even the previous Tian Mingzi would find it difficult to do so at his peak. Chapter 2704. While Little Pig was feeling depressed, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. Her eyes flickered as she copied the process of Yu Ming drawing the inscription mark into her eyes. It was a pity that she wasn't strong enough to use the battle inscription pattern. Otherwise she wouldn't know who would catch who today. Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered. While she copied the inscription pattern, the life and death yin-yang sword in her hand didn't stop. After breaking the battle inscription pattern that had blasted away Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others, she changed her move and swept it horizontally. Boom. The life and death yin-yang sword flashed and rushed toward Yu Mingqian. After blocking Little Pig's huge claw, Yu Mingqian rushed toward Luo Qingtong again. When he saw Luo Qingtong's ordinary and powerless sword light, Yu Mingqian didn't intend to dodge. But for some reason when the sword light was about to split him, Yu Mingqian's heart suddenly tightened. A strong premonition suddenly flashed in his heart. He thought of Luo Qingtong's cunning. With her scheming mind, it didn't make sense for her to suddenly swing such a powerless and murderous sword attack. Although he didn't find anything wrong, Yu Mingqian drew a battle inscription pattern in front of him when the last sword light was about to strike him. When the sword light hit the battle inscription pattern, it suddenly turned as black as ink. The death blade's radiance flickered like an obsidian. Yu Mingqian's eyes instantly shrank when she saw the thick, deathly stillness energy. What a pity! Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She felt very regretful. She didn't use any martial arts on purpose. She only used the sword light of the life and death yin-yang sword. Her purpose was to prevent Yu Mingqian from dodging. As long as such a strike landed on Yu Mingqian, Luo Qingtong was confident that she would be able to open a wound on his body. When the power of death invaded his body, it would be enough to destroy half of his life inscription mark. His strength would be greatly affected. Because Luo Qingtong had repaired the inscription mark of the city lord before, she naturally knew how to destroy the inscription mark in the shortest time possible. Even if Yu Mingqian's inscription skills were higher than Tianfeng city lord's, she could still destroy half of his life inscription mark. But he dodged it. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, her eyes suddenly narrowed and she suddenly retreated. Her figure was extremely fast and in an instant she had already left Yi Qianming's group. When Bei Qing and Feng Yu saw this, they hurriedly chased after her. Luo Qingtong's strength couldn't be compared with Yu Mingqian's. If the evil doctor was really captured, they didn't need to live anymore. They could just kill themselves in front of Yi Qianxian. However, as soon as they rushed out, a few violent demonic moon sect members rushed out from the side and stopped them. It was Yu Mingqian who used his mind to call these violent evil moon sect members over. He wanted them to stop Bei Qing Fengyu and the others. This time he would not let Luo Qingtong escape. His opponent had almost used up all his trump cards. Yu Mingqian had never seen anyone with the strength of an Empyrean realm like Luo Qingtong. She had almost defeated him. Putting aside the two giant claws from before, the sword light just now really made his hair stand on end. Yu Mingqian had no doubt that if he hadn't listened to the warning in his heart and blocked the sword light, he would have regretted it very much. However, he blocked it so Luo Qingtong couldn't escape from his hands. When he chased after Luo Qingtong's swoosh. Chapter 2705. Within his body, a terrifying power that could destroy the heavens and the earth circulated through his meridians like a sheathed sword or a roaring dragon. Like a dragon swimming in the sea, it returned to his dantian and was sealed up. Boom! A violent sound like a dragon's roar and a tiger's roar was suddenly emitted from his meridians, which had been repaired by 30%. In an instant, the roar that came from his meridians was like a stormy sea or a gust of wind, resounding throughout the cave world. Then with a boom, Yi Qianxian's body was suddenly shaken by the residual power. This power was less than 1/3 of the power that was flowing in his body before, but when it was shaken out, it was as if the world was falling apart. In an instant, the figures of the evil moon sect people who were blocking Bei Qing and Fengyu were shaken into invisible dust. Not even a drop of blood or flesh floated down from the sky. When the power in Yi Qianxian's body shook out, everyone present was stunned. Especially Zhang Beiyue and the others. At this moment, they were being attacked by the evil moon sect people who had gone berserk and did not care about their lives. They were retreating step by step. However, at this moment, the roar of the meridians in Yi Qianxian's body suddenly shook. Their figures, along with the evil moon sect people, all froze for a moment. Under such circumstances, their gazes towards Yi Qianren were filled with shock and fear. The dragon's roar and tiger's roar that erupted from his body was too powerful. At that moment, they felt as if they were being stared at by a peerless ferocious beast. As long as the other party wanted to, he could tear them to pieces in an instant. It was just a blast of energy and a roar, but it had such power and feeling. How strong was the other party's strength? How earth-shattering would it be if he unleashed it? Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others were pleasantly surprised. Master! They looked at Yi Qianxian, who seemed to be in the eye of a hurricane. Their faces were almost filled with tears of joy. How long had it been since they had felt Yi Qianxian's violent and tyrannical power? Although Yi Qianxian was able to display such a violent and shocking strength despite the tearing of his meridians, such strength could not be maintained for long. And every time he used it, Yi Qianxian's meridians would immediately be torn apart, causing rivers of blood to flow. For a very long time he would not be able to use even the slightest bit of strength that his meridians could withstand. But at this moment, they could sense that Yi Qianxian's energy was long and continuous. It was obvious that he was brimming with energy and vitality. Moreover, Yi Qianxian's meridians were no longer torn. Clearly, this power did not exceed the limits of Yi Qianxian's meridians. Master's meridians have strengthened again. Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others had tears in their eyes. Only God knew how long they had been waiting for this miracle to happen. Although Luo Qingtong had strengthened Yi Qianxian's meridians to 10%, no one knew if she could continue to strengthen Yi Qianxian's meridians. Would there be any hindrances? Would she fail? Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others were hopeful but at the same time uneasy. Chapter 2706. Master will definitely be able to regain his former power. Moreover, his lifespan will no longer be limited by the heavenly vein body. The Tiandu body, which was said to be incurable, would die before the age of 28, and would not last more than 5 years at most, could finally be cured. This hope was limited to Luo Qingtong, and they did not know why Luo Qingtong was able to cure Yi Qianxian's heavenly vein body. However, Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others did not care about this. As long as Luo Qingtong could save Yi Qianxian, it would be fine. Moreover, Luo Qingtong was their future mistress. The more powerful she was, the better it would be for them. Thinking of this, they hurriedly said to Yi Qianxian, "Master, the evil doctor is being chased away." He should be an important figure in the Central Inscriptionist Union. His inscriptionist strength is comparable to an expert at LV9 of the Earth martial arts realm. He might be even stronger. When their words rang out, Yi Qianren's violent shockwaves also abruptly retracted. Then he looked coldly at Bei Qing Fengyu and the others. He did not ask them why they did not stop the evil doctor. Bei Qing Fengyu and the others whose strength was sealed could not deal with someone at LV9 of the Earth martial arts realm. With a swoosh, Yi Qianren's figure disappeared in front of everyone. Bei Qing Fengyu and the others hurriedly chased after him. When they left, the people of the Zhan family came to their senses. They looked at themselves and the others. When they left, the people of the Tianfeng Chu family and the Feixing Lian family, who had been stunned by Yi Qianxian's power and Luo Qingtong's power, came to their senses. That person just now is so strong. Not only that, but Luo Xiaoqi's strength is also so strong. They were indescribably dispirited. They could not find a word to describe Yi Qianxian's strength. After all, this was a strength that shocked and frightened the people of the Zhan family. The people of the Tianfeng Chu family and the Feixing Lian family did not know how to describe this strength. But Luo Qingtong's strength. She was only in the venerable realm. How could she fight against the man in black? But the truth was, Luo Qingtong had escaped from Yu Mingqian's hands. Not only that, but the giant claw that emerged from her body and the sword in her hand. The Heavenly Wind Chu family and the Flying Star Lian family could not see the change on Yu Mingqian's face, but from his temporary pause, Luo Qingtong's attack should have affected him. An exalted realm cultivator against a LV9 martial realm cultivator. Unexpectedly, he was able to escape from the opponent's hands and was able to cause a certain amount of damage to the opponent. If the people of the Heavenly Wind Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have been dead already. They probably wouldn't have believed it at all. Chuker's face was filled with shock. She screamed hysterically at the first moment. How is this possible? How is this possible? How can that bitch be so strong? However, before she could finish speaking, Chu Yuqing slapped her across the face and sent her flying. At this moment, the latter no longer showed any mercy. Chuker was slapped to the ground. She twitched twice and stopped moving. It was unknown whether she was alive or dead. Chu Yuqing's expression was ugly. He looked at the people of the Lian and Tianfeng Chu families and said, Chuker was rude. I've already taught her a lesson. This matter has nothing to do with our third elder. After this is over, I will personally take her to the Red Flame mercenaries to ask for forgiveness. Chapter 2707. Chu Yuqing's words were spoken one at a time, and he felt like he was about to vomit blood. No one had expected Luo Qingtong to be so secretive. Xiaqi's identity hadn't been enough for them to pay attention to. After all, rumors couldn't be trusted. Who knew if what he said was true or false? Especially his identity as a battle spirit master. That was complete nonsense. But the strength Luo Qingtong had just revealed was something they couldn't ignore. Luo Qingtong was able to fight against someone in the 9th level of the Earth martial realm. Even if it was only for a moment, it was enough to shock everyone. They didn't know Luo Qingtong's name or who she was. Naturally, they could only start with the Red Flame mercenary group. After all, they didn't know whether or not she had anything to do with Tianfeng Inscription City. But her relationship with the Red Flame mercenary group was obvious to all. When Chu Yuqing's voice sounded, Chu Jingyi immediately laughed mockingly. I'm afraid you won't have the chance to apologize in the future. As he spoke, he looked at the unconscious Chu Lingfeng who was being supported by the others. The latter had struggled too violently and wanted to help Luo Qingtong, but had been knocked unconscious by the others. Chu Yuqing had plotted to kill Chu Lingfeng. His family wouldn't let him off. Now he wanted to apologize to Xiaqi? But when he spoke, Chu Yuqing's expression turned ugly. He sneered and said, that might not be the case. After all, I didn't try to steal her from him. Chu Yuqing was naturally talking about Yi Qianxian. In his opinion, Chu Lingfeng had taken a fancy to Luo Qingtong and was trying to steal her from Yi Qianxian. When the time came, it was hard to say who would be the unlucky one. If Yi Qianxian became unhappy and attacked the Tianfeng Chu family, who knew if Chu Lingfeng would still be able to hold on to his position as the young master? After all, his opponent's strength wasn't just for show. When they heard Chu Yuqing's words, the expressions of Chu Jingyi and the others also turned ugly. They also had a headache over Chu Lingfeng's improper thoughts towards Luo Qingtong. Previously, because of Chu Lingfeng's identity as the young master, his feelings for Luo Qingtong were absolutely impossible. But now it was all because of Yi Qianxian's identity. Since the other party was so powerful, he was definitely not an ordinary person. His young master snatching someone from the other party was simply courting death. As Chu Jingyi and the others thought this, they no longer had any thoughts of targeting Chu Yuqing and the others. Everyone was thinking about what to do. How could he make Chu Lingfeng give up on Luo Qingtong? If Chu Lingfeng knew what they were thinking, he would definitely shout loudly that he did not have such thoughts about his master. He would not fight with Yi Qianxian for her. However, he didn't know anything at this moment, so he naturally couldn't defend himself. Chu Yufei clenched her teeth so hard that they were about to bleed. She didn't dare to let Chu Yuqing, Chu Jingyi and the others notice her for fear that she would end up like Chu Ke. But in her heart she was extremely unwilling to accept this. These people were talking in full swing, but they didn't know if Luo Shaoqi would be able to escape the pursuit of that black-robed man. She couldn't, then what was the point of talking so much here? Wouldn't it be all for nothing? As she thought this, her heart was full of ridicule. She hoped that Luo Qingtong wouldn't be able to escape. That way she wouldn't have to worry about the other party finding a chance to make trouble for her. Chapter 2708. Her figure was extremely fast. Relying on the geographical position of this cave world, she rapidly shuttled through this cave world. This cave world was vast, and there was not much difference between it and the abandoned continent world on the surface. The only difference was that one was on the surface and the other was underground. Otherwise, no matter how powerful Luo Qingtong's blood eyes were, there was no way she could escape from Yu Mingqian's pursuit. Of course, she also had no way to get rid of him. Yu Mingqian's breath firmly locked onto her. The power of inscriptions around his body gathered, and inscription patterns appeared one after another, rushing in all directions. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong's powerful blood eyes and the life and death yin and yang sword in her hand that was extremely good at cutting any illusory and energy, Yu Mingqian's inscription patterns would not have been able to catch up and trap her. With Yu Mingqian's inscription skills and martial arts strength, he would have caught her long ago. After Luo Qingtong's figure dodged his inscription attacks several times and was not affected by his inscription patterns at all, Yu Mingqian knew that it was impossible to use his identity as an inscription master to keep Luo Qingtong here. If it were an ordinary warrior, they would have been trapped by his inscription technique. Since it was useless against Luo Qingtong, he would not use it. With his martial arts strength, he could still catch Luo Qingtong in his hands. He did not believe that she could keep escaping. Thinking this, Yu Mingqian suddenly changed his strategy. The inscription patterns surrounding his body no longer rushed towards Luo Qingtong, but scattered in all directions, blocking Luo Qingtong's way of turning back and circling around. She could only keep moving forward. In this way, unless there was no end to this cave world, he would be able to catch Luo Qingtong sooner or later. Boom! When Yu Mingqian's inscription patterns scattered in all directions, Luo Qingtong also felt the power behind her change. She felt that Yu Mingqian's inscription patterns scattered in all directions, and everywhere she went was covered in the aura of inscriptions. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. The other party was indeed powerful. This move made it impossible for her to take a detour or lead the other party in circles. In this way, as long as she ran to the end, she could only obediently surrender. Fortunately, she didn't run around randomly this time to stall for time. Is what you said true? Do you feel that the power of the great Tao here is even denser? Luo Qingtong asked Little Pig as she leaped forward. The latter had already appeared in her mind, squatting on her shoulder. Her 4 little hooves were grabbing her clothes, and her 2 pink little ears were bouncing along with the sound of the Luo Qingtong's wind. I can't be wrong. I didn't sense it before either. However, when I first revealed myself, I clearly sensed that the great Tao energy here was even denser. Little Pig's voice rang in Luo Qingtong's ears. It turned out that he was the one who told Luo Qingtong to withdraw from Yi Qianxian's group and run here. After all, the great Tao energy here was so dense. If she threw the little dumpling in, there might be a chance to solve Luo Qingtong's current crisis. What else could she do? Stay there and be captured? The power in Yi Qianxian's body had gone out of control, and he wouldn't be able to help for a while. Therefore Little Pig told Luo Qingtong to run quickly. Chapter 2709. She looked at the direction Little Pig was leading her and raised her eyebrows slightly. The great Tao energy is denser than the heart of the continent? Could it be that the heart of the continent is fake? That was what she thought, but then she denied it. Those spirit beasts and great Dao spirits were protecting the heart of the continent. It was obvious that it wasn't a fake heart of the continent. At this moment she didn't encounter a single spirit beast as she rushed into the depths of the cave world. Clearly those spirit beasts had all gone forward. That heart of the continent was definitely real. There was only one possibility. The place ahead where the power of the Great Path was denser was probably the key to the change in the heart of the continent on this abandoned continent. Was that the true reason those spirit beasts and great Dao spirits appeared? Luo Qingtong's eyes brightened as she thought of this. She thought of the reason Zhang Beiyue and the others appeared. They were definitely here for the treasure in the heart of the continent. However, they had all been mistaken, including her. Because of the heart of the continent and the appearance of those spirit beasts and great Dao spirits, all of them thought that the treasure was in the heart of the continent. After all, it gave birth to the sky luo grass. And those spirit beasts and great Dao spirits were desperately protecting the heart of the continent. Coupled with the various changes in the abandoned continent, they mistakenly thought that the treasure was closely related to the heart of the continent, or even appeared in the treasure. However, they forgot one thing. That was, these two things didn't have much of a connection at all. Even if the demon beasts in the cave world were nurtured into spirit beasts by the treasure, their mission was still to protect the heart of the continent, not the treasure. They were misled by the actions of those spirit beasts and great Dao spirits. That treasure affected the heart of the continent, but it might not be in the heart of the continent. If Little Pig hadn't sensed the difference in the great Dao energy when he transformed, they would have been completely mistaken. As of this moment, the direction she was heading in was the true location of the rare treasure. Luo Qingtong's eyes shone brightly as she thought of this. Swoosh! Her figure flashed forward at a high speed. Soon she arrived at the place where Little Pig had led her to. This is the place. Little Pig raised his little hoof and pointed at the pitch-black abyss in front of them. It was unknown just how long the abyss was. It's right below here. Yu Mingqian's figure had already appeared not far behind Luo Qingtong. His figure had been chasing after Luo Qingtong's figure. At this moment, seeing her appear in front of this pitch-black abyss that stretched for who knew how long, his eyes narrowed slightly. For some reason, the abyss in front of him gave him a very bad feeling. If possible, he didn't want Luo Qingtong to escape. Xianxia, you can't escape. As long as you tell me about the inscription of God and obtain it for me, I won't hurt you. His voice was cold. This was the first time Yu Mingqian had tried to negotiate with someone who was weaker than her. In this world, only Xianxia could do this. If Yu Mingqian's thoughts towards Luo Qingtong before were playful and indifferent, then she wouldn't care about it at all. She didn't even care, thinking that she could easily achieve her goal. Chapter 27:10. She was definitely the most difficult person he had ever met. Yu Mingqian could temporarily give up his principles for her so that she could talk terms with him. However, the moment he said that, Luo Qingtong chuckled. So it's for the inscription of God. It's a pity that I'm not going to tell you. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold. Yu Mingqian's conditions were indeed sincere. Indeed, he sincerely wanted to negotiate with her. However, the inscription of God was one of her biggest secrets. She inherited the inscription of the Immortal Slayer Palace and their hatred. Even if Luo Qingtong had no intention of carrying this big trouble for the Immortal Slayer Palace, the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace would not let her go for this secret. Under such circumstances, how could she give up on the inscription of God? Moreover, if she told them about the inscription of God, she would have to hand over the life and death sword. This was impossible for Luo Qingtong. If Yu Mingqian had asked for it when she got the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace, and he didn't threaten her, she might have considered it. But this would... Luo Qingtong looked at Yu Mingqian and sneered. Snatch it first and talk terms later. Did he think she was a fool? She didn't like the feeling of being a fish on a chopping block. Moreover, Yu Mingqian wanted to know the whereabouts of the inscription of God so badly. How could he be sure that he was telling the truth? He wouldn't hurt her. But in this world, there were many ways to make people feel like they were dead and leave no trace of injury. Luo Qingtong could find many ways to do it. Would a person like Yu Mingqian not leave a way out for himself? He was afraid that if she agreed, then her life and death would no longer be in his hands. She might even be asked to be loyal to him. Luo Qingtong was not interested in any of this. Instead, she was very interested in seeing him suffer. Yu Mingqian's eyes darkened. He looked at Luo Qingtong. He had already made such a concession. She was actually unwilling. Did she really think that she could escape from the palm of his hand? Yu Mingqian had already lost her patience. He was very afraid of Luo Qingtong escaping again and again. But if it wasn't for the whereabouts of the god's inscription, how could he let them escape again and again? Just because he wasn't ruthless to Luo Qingtong, it didn't mean that he couldn't. Don't force me. As he spoke, he shook off the power around him with a boom. Seeing his actions, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly narrowed. If she guessed correctly, the other party had most likely seen through her intentions. With Yu Mingquan's strength, if she really wanted to stop Luo Qingtong at all costs and prevent her from entering the abyss, then if Luo Qingtong rushed into the abyss, she would be walking right into a trap. But if she didn't go to the abyss, Luo Qingtong had no other way to go in this cave world. Yu Mingquan's scheming was outstanding. If she really couldn't enter the abyss, it was only a matter of time before she was caught by the other party. Luo Qingtong thought so, and suddenly her eyes turned slightly. Okay, I can promise you. But Luo Qingtong's words stopped here. Suddenly, her eyes brightened and she looked behind Yu Mingquan and shouted, "Brother, you're here? Let's do it together." Chapter 27:11. Then her figure suddenly shot up and rushed in the direction of Yu Mingqian. Yu Mingqian had been paying attention to Luo Qingtong's movements. When she changed her words and agreed, his eyes became vigilant. Then when he heard Luo Qingtong's words, he hesitated for a moment. Was what the other party said true or false? Luo Qingtong's change of words did seem like she was deliberately attracting his attention so that others could make a move. But this woman's mind was cunning. It was very likely that she was deliberately putting on this act for him to see. Which one was the fake one? Was there someone behind her, or was Luo Qingtong deliberately tricking him? Yu Mingqian's mind was spinning rapidly. When Luo Qingtong's figure shot up and rushed towards him, he finally made a decision. This was true. There was indeed someone behind him. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong's actions would have been to immediately retreat and enter the abyss after calling out that there was someone behind him. Yu Mingqian thought so and immediately blocked Luo Qingtong's sword light with an attack. At the same time, he abruptly turned around and faced the person behind him. A terrifyingly dense power pulsed around his body. In just an instant, countless high-level battle inscription patterns condensed around Yu Mingqian's body. These battle inscription patterns, no matter which one it was, were not something that an ordinary battle spiritualist could condense. But at this moment beside Yu Mingqian, it was as simple as eating and drinking. It was condensed directly. At this moment, the strength that Yu Mingqian displayed was almost at the peak. The strength of a battle spiritualist was originally far more tyrannical than that of an ordinary martial arts expert. Now, with the support of Yu Mingqian's inscription pattern technique, the strength that he could display was even more terrifying to the extreme. If this strength was used against Luo Qingtong, even with the help of the Blood Eye, the latter would not be able to successfully enter the abyss under his attack. The only possibility was that she would be injured by him and then captured. Her life might even be in danger. However, this power wasn't directed at Luo Qingtong. Instead, it was directed behind Yu Mingquan. Seeing Yu Mingqian's actions, Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up with a dark light mixed with blood. Then a laughter that sounded like silver bells rang out. "Thank you for sending me off. I won't stand on ceremony since you've done me such a great favor." As Luo Qingtong spoke up to this point, the sword in her hand changed its angle in an instant. With a boom, it chopped down on Yu Mingquan's attack. In just an instant, under the precisely calculated angle, the aftermath of the collision of the two attacks erupted. Luo Qingtong's figure was like a blue swan and white crane. In an instant, she rode the wind and borrowed the force of the shockwave to rush towards the abyss behind her. His speed was even faster than when he had rushed towards Yu Mingqian. When Luo Qingtong's voice rang out, Yu Mingqian had already seen that there was no one behind him. This woman had tricked him. And she had really succeeded. Yu Mingqian's eyes were filled with shock and anger. Almost instantly he rushed towards Luo Qingtong's direction. But it was too late. Luo Qingtong had borrowed the force of the collision between his attack and her sword to force him into the abyss in an instant. Then with a swoosh. Chapter 27:12. Xia. Yu Mingqian roared angrily, almost gnashing her teeth. She chased after Luo Qingtong and rushed in. After they left for a while, Xianxia also appeared in the abyss. He felt the aura left by Yu Mingqian and Luo Qingtong, and directly jumped into the abyss. Boom! When Luo Qingtong's figure disappeared into the abyss, the surrounding power of the Great Path instantly pressed against her like a tide. The power of the Great Path in this abyss was so rich that it turned into water. Luo Qingtong's eyes were shocked, and she felt as if she had fallen into a sea of water. The point was that there was so much spiritual water and rich power of the Great Path, but she couldn't feel any power from outside the abyss. This was too strange. Luo Qingtong wasn't shocked for too long. Soon she adjusted the frequency of her breathing. With a swoosh, she rushed in the sea of spiritual water. This was because this wasn't a real sea of water, but a sea of spiritual energy formed by the spiritual energy in the air. Therefore, although Luo Qingtong felt as if she was in the sea, her breathing wasn't affected at all. Not only that, every time she took a breath of spiritual energy, the power in her body was constantly rising. Luo Qingtong's previous strength had been raised to the level of Orange Venerable Realm. But now, under the infusion of the power of the Great Path, which was so rich that it turned into water, Luo Qingtong's strength instantly rose like a rocket. This was also because the power in her body had been completely reborn after she had been promoted to the Venerable Realm. Now the promotion of a small realm only required the infusion of power, and didn't require a qualitative improvement in the realm. This was like a huge bucket. The process of Luo Qingtong's promotion from the Sage Realm to the Venerable Realm was the process of this bucket being reborn. And when it was reborn, the power it could contain became another kind of power. Originally, Luo Qingtong needed a process to accumulate this kind of power and raise her strength. But now she was in this incomparably rich sea of power of the Great Path. In an instant, this kind of origin power of the Great Path filled the big bucket in her body. It raised her strength to the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm. The only pity was that Luo Qingtong couldn't rely on this power to raise her strength to the level of the human martial arts realm. That was because the promotion of a large realm still required her to comprehend the realm and break the barrier in her body. Otherwise, no matter how much power she had, it would be useless. Luo Qingtong was already very satisfied with this result. One must know that there was still a person behind her. It was enough to be able to raise her strength to such a level. If her strength could break through a large realm, the level of her realm level would be able to. Then wouldn't Yu Mingquan's strength have risen to a terrifying level? Then what was she still doing? She would just surrender without putting up a fight. Therefore, after discovering that her strength had stopped at the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm, Luo Qingtong's anxious heart was immediately relieved. She was really afraid that the power of this sea of power of the Great Path could help her continue to improve. Chapter 27:13. Luo Qingtong heaved a sigh of relief when she thought of this. She dived deeper into the abyss. There was no shelter in this abyss at all. There was rich power of the Great Path everywhere, but the resistance after the power of the Great Path turned into water was too strong. Moreover, in such an environment, no matter how strong Yu Mingqian was, it was impossible for her to directly lock onto Luo Qingtong's figure and appear beside her through so much power of the Great Path. Therefore, Luo Qingtong did not have to worry about being caught by Yu Mingqian. Otherwise, she would really be done for. Luo Qingtong's figure quickly swept forward. Soon, a dot of light appeared in front of her. That dot of light was very obvious and dazzling in the sea formed by the power of the Great Path. Almost at the moment when Luo Qingtong dived over, she saw it. She saw that the dot of light became brighter and brighter. Then as Luo Qingtong moved forward, it became clearer and bigger. It turned out that it was a huge blood-red city. Luo Qingtong's eyes were shocked as she looked at the towering city in front of her that seemed to crawl at the bottom of the abyss like a giant beast. The size of this city alone was already beyond her imagination. In Luo Qingtong's eyes, this city stretched as if there was no end to it. It was extremely vast and boundless. Luo Qingtong could not find any words to describe the towering, majestic, domineering, and fierce city of this city. Above this blood-red city there were countless spikes erected. The slightly flickering dark blood-red light and fierce color was at the bottom of this dark abyss. The city walls were mottled and broken, and the city's body was seriously collapsed, but it did not detract from its charm and momentum. Beside this blood-red city, there was an existence that made Luo Qingtong suck in a breath of cold air. She saw a huge beast that was almost as tall as the sky and the earth. Its huge head seemed to be able to break the sky of the abyss. It crawled beside the blood-red city. The gigantic spirit beast curled up its body. Layer by layer, It almost filled the entire bottom of the abyss. It was unknown how long it had been dead. Its entire body except for its head had turned into white bones. The skeletons stood in great numbers. However, that malevolent and domineering head was still held high above the pile of bones. The two bony wings around its body spread out as if it was about to fly. However, its skeletal wings had been broken long ago and many of the bones in its body had been shattered. Above the raised head there was even flesh and blood. A huge wound appeared on its forehead. But even so, one could still see the awe-inspiring might and domineering aura of this giant beast when it was alive. Torch Dragon. Little Pig sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw the giant beast. It poked its head out of Luo Qingtong's bosom and looked at the glorious dragon in front of it in shock. It's actually the Torch Dragon. The legendary giant beast of darkness, born at the border between light and darkness. It has supreme power and the ability to travel back and forth between the past and the future. It's one of the prehistoric giant beasts that created the world. It's in existence countless times more powerful than the ancient divine beasts. Oh my God, why is it here? Little Pig's eyes were filled with extreme shock. Chapter 27:14. She saw the Torch Dragon's claw resting on the majestic Blood City, obviously showing a protective stance. It flapped its wings and looked like it was about to soar into the sky. However, that claw of the Torch Dragon was resting on the majestic Blood City. Could it be that it was not about to soar into the sky but was flapping its wings and puffing out its chest to defend against some kind of attack? And that attack was directed at this Blood City? This ancient beast was the guardian spiritual beast of this Blood City? Luo Qingtong took a deep breath at the thought of this. She knew what it meant to have a divine beast as a guardian spiritual beast, and an ancient behemoth as a guardian spiritual beast. It meant that the owner of this Blood City was far more powerful than the Torch Dragon. Otherwise, why would such a gigantic beast listen to the other party's orders and protect this Blood City with its life? One must know that this Torch Dragon was obviously killed in the process of protecting this Blood City. However, why did the other party not destroy this Blood City after killing the Torch Dragon? Moreover, as an ancient beast, the Torch Dragon's flesh and blood contained an infinite amount of energy, all of which were the essence of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Why did the other party not take it away? As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she flew towards the Blood City. The closer she got, the more she could feel the majesty of this Blood City. That sharp and terrifying aura had not dissipated after so many years. Not only that, the aura of the Torch Dragon was even more terrifying. Even after so many years, its flesh and blood, even though it was an ancient beast, had turned into white bones. However, the terrifying aura and coercion of the great Tao surrounding its body did not diminish in the least. Luo Qingtong could not even get within 100 meters of it. The latter's body was surrounded by an extremely terrifying and powerful energy. Under the influence of this energy, no one who was weaker than it could even dream of getting close to it. This ancient beast, even in death, would not allow its dignity to be tarnished. Luo Qingtong looked at this ancient beast and did not go any closer. Instead, she turned towards the huge Blood City. Fortunately, the Blood City and the Torch Dragon's corpse were far enough apart. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong could forget about getting close to this Blood City. Looking at the sea of spiritual energy that was faintly discernible as it revolved around the Torch Dragon and the Blood City, Luo Qingtong understood that this was the reason why the power of the Great Tao was so rich here. At the same time, this was also the source of the heart of the continent that produced the Great Tao spirit and spiritual beasts. Previously, Luo Qingtong did not think that there was any special treasure that could cause such a change. However, after seeing this Blood City and the Torch Dragon, she no longer had any doubts. After all, putting everything else aside, the energy emanating from the Torch Dragon's flesh and blood alone was enough to cause a mutation in the heart of the continent in this abandoned continent. Not to mention this was the Blood City. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she immediately dashed into the Blood City. Just as she dashed into the dilapidated but still imposing city gate, there was a loud boom. Not far behind Luo Qingtong, 1,000 ripples were stirred up. It was Yu Mingqian. She had also noticed what was happening. She quickly flew over. Seeing his figure, Luo Qingtong's eyes instantly darkened. To say, I almost forgot about him. Luo Qingtong's figure dashed towards the Blood City. Chapter 27:15. There was no other reason other than the fact that there was no energy of the Great Path in this Red City. The ocean of energy of the Great Path seemed to be blocked by an invisible force. This situation was very unfavorable to Luo Qingtong. Previously, she relied entirely on the resistance and shielding effect of the Great Path to prevent Yu Mingqian from catching up to her. Now that there was no obstruction from the Great Path, it was very likely that Yu Mingqian would be able to catch up to her soon. Quick. Can you sense where is the place that is emitting the rich power of the Great Tao in this blood city? Luo Qingtong asked Little Pig who was in her arms. The red city blocked the energy of the Great Path. Then, the only place that was emitting the rich energy of the Great Path could only be the location of the rare treasure. Luo Qingtong could only hope that Little Pig could sense it. Otherwise, she would not have the chance to find the rare treasure in such a huge red city. As for Xiao Tuanzi, Luo Qingtong could not count on it. Initially, she thought that the rich energy of the Great Path here could awaken the little guy. However, Luo Qingtong had been moving in the ocean of energy of the Great Path for so long, but it did not move at all. Obviously, the energy of the Great Path here was not suitable for it to absorb. Since that was the case, Luo Qingtong could only place her hopes on the rare treasure. When Luo Qingtong's words were heard, Little Pig quickly replied, "Yes. It's right in front." As it spoke, it lifted its little hoof and pointed towards the center of the red city. "All right." Luo Qingtong nodded and leaped towards the center of the red city. As she leaped towards the center of the red city, Yu Mingqian's figure had also rushed into the red city's gate. Xia Qi. Seeing Luo Qingtong's figure disappear from his sight, Yu Mingqian's eyes narrowed and immediately chased after her. The torch dragon and the red city here had also shocked him. To think that such a terrifying existence was hidden in this abandoned continent. It was obvious that the ancient divine object that the demonic moon sect had mentioned before was true. However, did Xia Qi appear here by accident or did he purposely rush here? Yu Mingqian's heart sank. He realized that he couldn't understand the person in front of him anymore. He had originally thought that she was just an ordinary youth with some strange abilities. Later on, he found out that she was a woman. Moreover, she was not lacking in scheming, strength, and talent. In the end, it escaped from his hands again and again, causing him to have no choice but to run around tirelessly. Yu Mingqian had never met a woman as difficult to deal with as Luo Qingtong. She had broken his understanding of women, the kind of troublesome, disdainful existence. Yu Mingqian's eyes narrowed. She inexplicably wanted to investigate Luo Qingtong's identity as a woman. What would the other party look like? It was a pity that the other party's concealment ability was too strong. Otherwise, he would know her true identity and appearance. However, it was the same if he caught the other party now. As long as she fell into his hands, her identity and appearance would naturally be exposed. As Yu Mingqian thought of this, he suddenly sped up a little. As he chased after Luo Qingtong with a swoosh, Luo Qingtong's figure quickly leaped past the collapsed buildings and streets, shuttling through the red city at lightning speed. Relying on the obstacles of the collapsed buildings and the cracks on the ground, Luo Qingtong's figure tried her best to keep a distance from Yu Mingqian. Boom! Her figure leaped from the alley into the huge square in front of her. Chapter 27:16. In the middle of the huge central square, there was a statue that seemed to be able to support the heaven and earth, standing in the middle of the square. From the appearance of the statue in the square, it seemed to be a woman. Her body was curvaceous from top to bottom, and she was wearing a tight blood-red armor, which made her look unusually charming and seductive. For some reason, the face of the statue seemed to be hidden in a cloud of mist, which made it difficult for people to see clearly. Even if Luo Qingtong had activated her blood-red eyes to the extreme, the face of the statue still seemed to be shrouded in a veil, and it was impossible to see clearly. This statue had been here for who knows how many years. It had obviously experienced the collapse of the city, the destruction of the buildings, and the bones of the torch dragon, but there was not a single bit of damage on its body. Not only that, the luster on the surface was shining, revealing the skin as white as snow, black hair like a waterfall, and the blood-red armor was biting cold. It looked like a real person, vivid and lifelike. If not for the fact that her body was so huge, and that the bottom was connected to the base of the bronze liquid, Luo Qingtong would have thought that this was a real person. And it was a giant. This is the owner of this blood-red city? Luo Qingtong looked at the statue that appeared in the central square of the city. Usually, people who would appear here would be the founder of a city or its owner. There should be no doubt about the identity of this woman. But for some reason Luo Qingtong looked at this statue and inexplicably felt that it gave her a very familiar feeling. She felt that she had seen this statue somewhere before. But it was obviously her first time in this blood-red city, and it was also her first time seeing such a statue. If she had seen it before with this statue's special temperament and aura, and the face that could not be seen clearly, how could she forget it? Just as Luo Qingtong was thinking about this, suddenly, there was a sound of a figure breaking through the air behind her. It was Yu Mingqian who had caught up. Bang! Yu Mingqian's figure spread out, his sleeves like wings, and with a boom he smashed a half-collapsed wall and building in front of him into powder. In an instant his figure appeared at the end of the alley behind Luo Qingtong. And all the buildings behind the alley that were in the way of Yu Mingqian's pursuit of Luo Qingtong were all smashed into powder. He did not believe that Luo Qingtong could hide in this city for long. Seeing Yu Mingqian's figure appear, Luo Qingtong's pupils shrank. Her gaze quickly swept across the square in front of her. Except for that huge statue, there was nothing else in this central square. The place was so big that it took up almost 1/5 of the entire Blood City. There was only a statue standing there, not even a single building. So where was the so-called treasure? Luo Qingtong's gaze instantly. Based on her knowledge, rare treasures should be the treasures in this Blood City. Since it was a treasure, it would definitely be placed in the most important place to be protected. But at this moment, except for this statue, there was nothing else in this square. So where was the treasure? Humph, did you point to the wrong place? Luo Qingtong gritted her teeth and asked Little Pig in her arms. Chapter 27:17. When Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, Little Pig's voice also sounded hastily. No, it's here. Master, it's this statue. The power of the great Tao emanating from its body is the densest. That rare treasure should be on its body. When Little Pig's voice sounded, Luo Qingtong's gaze instantly froze. On this statue? She looked at the statue and quickly found something wrong on the latter's wrist. On this statue's wrist there were 2 blood-colored bracelets. These 2 blood-colored bracelets were engraved with the blood-colored red spider lily, intertwining with the blood-colored devil's snare. They intertwined with each other, forming the posture of twin lotuses. It made the 2 blood-red bracelets seem like divine objects that were being consecrated on the other side of the Yellow Springs River. They carried a devilish and enchanting aura, and they seemed like divine objects of the heavens and the earth, pure and inviolable. These 2 bracelets were real bracelets, not decorations on the statue. Luo Qingtong looked at them and there was a flash of astonishment on her face. She didn't expect that the treasures in this Blood City were actually these 2 bracelets. The dense power of the great Tao emanating from the statue was emitted by these bracelets. Let's go. Although she didn't know if these 2 bracelets could solve her current crisis, she still didn't know. But at this moment Luo Qingtong could only treat a dead horse as a living one. One had to know that at this moment in this huge plaza, there was no shelter other than this statue. It was impossible to pass through this plaza and leave from other places. Without the buildings and alleyways to block her, Luo Qingtong couldn't outrun Yu Mingqian. And the latter's strength and speed were at their peak in this open space. As long as the other party wanted to, they could definitely catch her before she could escape. As for the trick, Luo Qingtong had already used it once before. She wasn't stupid enough to believe that Yu Mingqian would fall for it a second time. Therefore she could only place her hope on these 2 bracelets. Hopefully they would be of some use. Hopefully they weren't just for show. With that in mind, Luo Qingtong leaped up and charged towards the huge statue. Just as her figure disappeared, Yu Mingqian's figure instantly appeared where she had been. With a swoosh, he stretched out his hand and instantly caught the afterimage that was left in the air. Boom! Yu Mingqian's figure disappeared in an instant. She once again chased after Luo Qingtong. Without the obstruction of the building, Luo Qingtong's figure was completely visible in front of him. Yu Mingqian closed in on Luo Qingtong in an instant. With his strength at the 9th level of the Earth Martial Realm, it would be too easy for him to catch up with Luo Qingtong. However, Luo Qingtong would not allow herself to be captured without a fight. Without the obstruction of the buildings, she still had her bloody eyes. Although she couldn't prevent Yu Mingqian from catching up to her like before. But if he wanted to catch her, it wouldn't be so simple. Boom! Luo Qingtong seemed to have eyes on the back of her head. Almost at the moment when Yu Mingqian was about to grab her, her figure disappeared in front of him. Luo Qingtong's pupil technique was activated to the extreme. The bloody light in her eyes was so red that it seemed to drip blood. The whites of her eyes were bright red as if they were dyed with blood. It was extremely demonic and evil.